can't explain how it smells here. It's really nice. It's like, it's so floral. Oh man, it's just, it smells good. Anyway, in a rare fuck up, I forgot to charge my bike. So pedal assisted electric bike. I still get lots of great exercise with it, but you can see the hills, and it would just be very hard for me to grind up the hills, even with a bike with the right gears. It just makes things nice, and it extends my range a bit. So I can go to nice places. But yeah, so you can see what I'm talking about, you know, you can gather, but still have to spend money. So these trees have come along very, very nicely, these olive trees. They were really, really small. They grow so quick. I mean, it's surreal, man. I could do it like more of a before and after thing, but I have to go dig around. I really need to store my data better. A lot of the footage I take, I just delete it after I make a video, because I don't want to store it. But yeah, so I'm taking a walk, see how the camera does just walking, because I was thinking about there's a hike I want to do in Lisbon, and I was wondering if it would be possible to wear this cam and walk around. Also, sometimes you can just get away with capturing some candid, oh, nice butterfly, candid shots with this kind of a cam. And of course, if you're making a spec film and you're going to distribute it on Vimeo and other video platforms, you don't need to have the Netflix specs. And you know, you can get away with stealing some 4K shots here and there to put into a scene to flesh it out, make it more cinematic and interesting. So I've got enough to make my film, but it's, you know, I have to figure out the simplest way to do it and make it look really good. And I can reach the Netflix specs with my Lumix gear. But again, finding ways to use those little micro four thirds cameras to steal some shots here and there without having to pay for permits and all that kind of thing. But still, if anyone's ever really in the frame, you have to get a release form. So just use the phone and a digital release and explain to the people they might be in a movie. It's hard. So, you know, I'm not going to be shooting in Lisbon. You go and shoot in the countryside and you can tell the whole village what you're doing. And people say, oh, okay, it's cool. So yeah, I just walk around the park here next to my house instead of taking a bike ride. I want to get outdoors a little bit in the morning. So yeah, I'm talking about Age of Wonder, Age of Reason, the Enlightenment, all that kind of thing that everybody struggles over. Because no matter how good a right-wing genie wrangler you are, there are certain things you can't unlearn or can't get rid of, like the technology that the right wing became very good at using. First it was radio. Well, first it was the press, then it was radio. Then it was talk radio when the technology came along allowing for toll-free call-in. And then cable TV, then obviously the tubes. So there's plenty of outlets. And you get with the times, use the technology, all the stuff at your disposal, the resources, to get your message out there. And one of the messages is, it's all demonic. Progress, modernity, so what are you going to do? War. How do we get rid of billions of people? War. People are always happy, I got my kind of people. And my kind of people are good people, so. But those other people, be nice if you could live here. Wow. Yeah, so there's a really nice hour-long walk or so. A little more than that. All the way down the hill, through the valley, back up the hill. I can see birds of prey. These little parks allow for a lot of wildlife. So the other day I was cycling, I saw some deer scat. They're shy, but they're here. And sometimes on a bicycle you can come up on wildlife, they don't hear you in time to disappear. I don't know if you can see that against the contrast of the cloud. There's a hawk up there. I should probably, did I bring it? Yeah, so this walk in Lisbon from Sete Rios, and you go through this big park behind the center of the city, kind of on one end, the eastern end, I guess, or no, I don't know. There's the train line, and then you can go down to the Modern Art Museum, Bellum. You can keep walking up through that park and head towards Cascais. In between Lisboa and Cascais, there are a lot of nice beaches and stuff, communities. It's really cool. Yeah, you can live outside, in the countryside like we do, or you can get a nice city pad. Both ways are good. Oh no. Can't have it all. Not enough clones. I used to read this Indian mythology and stuff, and they talk about how you could exist in more places than one. Somehow, if you meditated right. So that's a fun little path down there. I don't know if I'm going to do that. I don't think so. Yeah, so like Wang was saying on the Jim Rutt show, we make, I forgot the term he used, as if decisions, as if, what would happen, what would we do? So we have access to those, but really, like being a CEO or the top level of an organization that's planning strategy and making the big decisions that are going to impact the company and the market in big ways. Like you have your PCs and then you have an iPod and swing, you're big. That's also a nice little road. It's a shortcut to the other road. So, we can decide which smartphone to buy and what streaming services to subscribe to, and, what to study at school, maybe, if we're lucky. But we don't make any big decisions that impact anything. So if you're going to hook up with the collective, some other group of people and develop a leadership structure that's manageable and effective, and then try to develop your own thing so that you can really create something that's new and different, that might have impact in the world, that might be imitated across cultures or, in different places. Like Peter Joseph had his movement, I guess it still exists, Zeitgeist, the movement, and, decentralized before all this stuff was really a thing years ago. And, maybe somewhere in the world somebody will develop a community, a small town or a city, where they can do things differently, have a different type of economy, manage things differently. But would America allow it, Probably on a small scale in a place like Portugal, because America doesn't care about olives and grapevines. But in other parts of the world where U.S. corporations have a big stake, they probably wouldn't let you do anything but what they wanted you to do politically, economically. You have to be in debt to them. It's the old mafia thing. Protection racket. War is a racket. And it's to the advantage of the players that play the great game, geopolitically speaking, to acquire and control resources, to develop products and services that are incredibly profitable, and eventually control monopolies so that they can get more powerful, and then code capital so that they can create derivative investments, so they can have more capital on capital returns, trading among themselves, so that when they're at sleep at night, they're making millions of dollars. And you're not. It's not for you, people. It's not your game, okay? So the rest of us are just bit players. We're here to keep the game going, and we trade our time, our lives basically, for money so that we can afford to pay rents. So you buy a car, you own a car, but you need license, registration, insurance, all that stuff. And there are good reasons for it. I'm not a sovereign man type. But at the end of the day, are you just renting? You don't own anything, really. I mean, the laws could change. They can take, the winners of a game, the game in a particular legal jurisdiction can take your house. And you see these nightmare documentaries on Netflix about people's income being confiscated because somebody declares them incompetent to take care of themselves or whatever. Oh my God. Or you just withdrew $20,000 because you're going to buy a boat and it's in your car and you get pulled over by the the highway patrol or the sheriff department. And they say, "What's this? Drug money? I'm going to have to confiscate that cash." There are examples of these kinds of things. Doesn't mean that you don't want regulation, law and order and all that kind of stuff. But, it can go too far. Do you really own that money? And you can talk about, banking and all that stuff. These subjects have been flogged for decades, and it just goes round and around. We're still in the same boat. Over time, the players can refine the game and the rules, and they get better and better tools for managing data, for manufacturing consent. We all buy into social media. There are billions of people using social media. So we're data machines. We're basically telling the players what we want, how to control us. It's not a conspiracy. It's not crazy. It's just the way it works. They have an advantage. So if you put a moratorium on the use of certain kinds of AI for a period of time, that doesn't mean that all the corporations aren't pedal to the metal working it, and also in stealthy ways. They still have our data. We give it to them, period, and we click on the terms of service, and that's that. Because I use Google, it's useful for me. Some of the services, the docs and the podcast and the, all the different things that Google has in its suite of stuff. So, I'm an open book. Nothing I can do about it. People don't know how to code a chip, right? At the very bottom level. Maybe you can use a particular kind of coding language to do something because you've learned that. But you don't have the ability to develop your own computing system. And you wouldn't have the ability to design and manufacture the chips for it. So you could take a Raspberry Pi and you could, if you knew how to do it, you could code it, and then you could do something on top of that that was totally proprietary to you. But people don't know how to do that. So we buy a smartphone and we put the apps on it and it all works. So we don't have any power. Whether or not we're hopeful or hopeless is just based on what kind of person you are. Half empty, half full. If you are a pom-pom boy or girl or whatever, for the status quo, for the system, the mainstream view of things, whatever that may be at any given moment in time, fine. All these billionaires thank you for your service. And then maybe you made $1 million, so you think in your mind that you're a player. So, maybe not, maybe you are. But your decisions really don't impact anything. Maybe you do things in your community that's impactful for your family and so on, but that's not a player in my book. That's not somebody engaged with the great game. power, capital, control, ideology, religion, belief systems, faith, propaganda machines, the press. That TV show Succession, the TV station, the newspaper, all the media, and, the president will call me on the telephone. Well, the president's just a freaking hired hand in a fake democracy, barely has the power to do anything because of the way the Congress and Senate are these days. And of course, every once in a while, Roosevelt comes along and does something because they can, because there's a state of emergency. It's just like in ancient Rome, you can be a dictator for 2 years because we're really screwed up here. We need somebody to take charge and sort things out. And then maybe they take too much power, and then you have to stab them to death. You have to assassinate them because, okay, things are kind of sorted out now. You're fucking with the game. You got to go. So that's why you're never going to see someone like Donald Trump or Biden assassinated. Because at the end of the day, they're players. They're part of the game. Even though Biden has less power than the people who put him in office. And by the same token, Trump also. He's just a front man. He's an icon. He's a little meme machine. He's entertainment. You might think, he has a good idea. Well, maybe intuitively he has ideas just like you do, but are they well developed? Are they well thought through? Can he implement them? No, because basically his raison d'etre is just to get attention. He's hungry for attention. So he's just a performer. He's a performer, okay? And maybe you love him. Yeah, but some of his ideas, were they his ideas? Did those ideas exist way before he co-opted them to spout off to get attention? It's really the intuition of the masses of plebs and proles that feel something ain't right, but they don't know how to articulate it. They don't understand how the game is played. But they know something's not right, Whose fault is it? Is it the libs' fault? Or the white Christian nationalists' fault? Or what, Who are we going to point our finger at? Who's fucking with us? Meanwhile, every day you get up, go to work, surrounded by your enemy. You even work with your enemy. You drive alongside your enemy in the culture wars. You go to school with the enemy. They're all around you, and you depend on them too, because they're maintaining the sewers and the power lines and doing all the dirty jobs. Do you go up to your insurance agent or whatever, the guy at the driver's license window, and say, by the way, if you're a libtard, I'm not going to allow you to give me my driver's license. Do you have somebody back there who's like from the alt-right that can service me, please? It doesn't work that way. So you're living with all the enemy. You're behind enemy lines. You're surrounded. They outflank us. So everybody in every little clique is always talking about how the other side is so powerful and always winning. You've got to be careful. The barbarians are at the gate. We got to fight back. But of course, it's just the players who are, allowing this nonsense to occur, even when they talk about, misinformation and, how do we manage it and all that kind of stuff. Fact checkers. None of it works. None of it's meaningful because at the end of the day, it's just for show. It's a veneer. And some people are going to complain about how it's done. Some people are going to accept how it's done. But it doesn't mean you're any closer to the truth. The only way any individual can be closer to the truth is to do a lot of hard work over a long period of time, learning logic, learning about psychology, human biology, how things work. So read a few books on economics from various perspectives across history. Read a little bit about engineering. Don't just stick to one side of the story. Look at what the other engineers say about how the buildings came down or whatever. Train yourself to be a critical thinker. It's not so easy. The skills you have to have. If you're going to be a decision maker or think slow in the Kahneman way, you have to train yourself for that. And you have to have some prior knowledge of things that you can update with new, better information over time. And you have to be open-minded enough to do that. So if you're constantly thinking you're smart because you react to certain information in a particular way, and that never changes over time, you're probably not a critical thinker. In your mind, you're smart, you're a critical thinker because you've read a few books or sold a lot of insurance or whatever. But you're not really, because your reaction, you don't stop and say, why did I react to this information this way? Where's that coming from? Is my reaction justifiable based on information that I might not want to look at? So am I going to take the time to triangulate, look at different perspectives, and then decide? So are you doing that kind of disciplined thing? Or do you just take it for granted that, you got your information from the Cracker Jack box, and the Cracker Jack God that puts the information in the Cracker Jack box is absolutely right? And you have a Cracker Jack box info interpreter and commentator who can tell you how to interpret that mysterious message in your Cracker Jack box. And you just accept it because, he's the guy that interprets the information from the Cracker Jack God. Enough said. Then you can just enjoy the brain chemistry that your outrage provokes. It's sickening, I tell you. I feel sick. How dare they say that? So, and then people want to hide their true beliefs behind abstractions. So you want to talk about Platonic forms and parallel universes, when all you really want is, I want my own, white Christian nation state where we can live properly and have good schools and good everything. And like I said earlier, are those people Christ-like? Why was Jesus a good Jew? Why did they take it to those, those Greek speakers? What was that all about? Yeah, so the idea is that, God isn't for those barbarians. He's for your people. But yeah, so most smart people who could be extremely brilliant, and skilled people, and articulate, handsome, energetic, yeah, they're pretty smart. But do they really know everything? Do they have blind spots, prejudices, agendas? And, most of us are money motivated. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have to be. We need to buy friends and buy stuff to impress friends and so on. And it costs money, people. Not cheap. Friendship is not cheap, my friends. a lot of things you got to do. If you're going to be a real man, a quality man, you got to know where to take that babe to impress her. You know? You got to have the nice suit, the good bling on. Yeah, right. As if there's not dozens of ways to do things, to organize stuff. Or potentialities, possibilities. And people are just makers. They want to make things, do things. And they want to learn things. We're curious. So yeah, you're going to get a Descartes. I'm sorry. It happened. And there's going to be some future Descartes. You just can't stop them from coming around and thinking up their shit and dumping it on the world. So yeah, you need wisdom of crowds. You need the right kind of leadership structures to make sense of things. You need cohesion, coherence. You need cultures and societies that are have high trust and all that kind of thing. And maybe it's not scalable to a federation like the United States or even Russia or China. Who knows? I mean, for the Communist Party of China to, maintain control of 1.4 billion people, it has to pull out all the stops if it wants to have any power to do anything in the world. So, yeah, they do. And then Americans have the illusion of control, the illusion of choice and democracy and whatnot. They feel like it because they've been taught that they have it their whole lives. So, of course, they have it. They have it. See, there was a critter in there, man, a big one. So, and you're an American, but you hate half of the population of America. So, the enemy within, aggressors, monsters under the bed, so on and so forth. So, yeah, I want to focus in on the end game, not in a conspiratorial sense, but in an analytic sense. Of course, there are millions of YouTube and Rumble and Rockfin channels doing that, and they're all branded. I'm a conservative, I'm a neo-reactionary, I'm a Democrat, The Hill. I mean, these things make me sick. I can't watch them. And then there's all kinds of really interesting people producing cool stuff, Thunderfoot and whatnot. There's just so much content. But I'm interested in this, how they play the game. From an academic-ish perspective, reading books, thinking about it, listening to people, having conversations. And so rather than I just want to take my journey and see if I can find anyone else to improvise with and keep learning until something happens to me and I can't anymore, because it's fascinating. And I'm not a player, but I'm a fan of some of them, the players, and I'm interested in them, as most of us are. So, who was Socrates, really? And why did the players, want him dead? It's a great story, isn't it? So how do players co-opt Look at that. Oh. So, I wish I knew more about scat. It's a good skill to have. What is that? It's not buffalo poop. It's not cow poop. What was here? So anyway, it's a fascinating subject. You really have to read around it from a lot of angles to start to understand the game. Because it's complex, as complex can be. You know, biology is complex, psychology is complex, human consciousness and language is complex. You know, it used to be we could knife fight, spears, arrows, swords, knives. That's not so complicated. But, you know, tactics, formations, strategy. Now, we put a $30 million machine on the battlefield and it gets killed by a $2,000 shell or something, a drone. And we think we're really smart. And that technology, the economies of war, will trickle down to the rest of us. Well, if you're going to save $10 a month and invest it, you might want to invest in companies that support the military-industrial complex, a big fund of funds like that, and just let it ride. So after several years, of course, we're all going to be in wet bulb earth in 10 or 20 years, that, you know, your investment grew, you had a rate of return on that, and you're sitting pretty. That's part of the game. Markets. So what's religion? What's religious-esque about markets? Thomas Friedman or even Adam Smith. And what's really based on data, science, ethics, moral sentiments, and so on. You have to think it through. So are you a player in the market, or are you just a consumer? You know, who's going to advise you where to put your money if you can't advise yourself? That's why so many conspiracy folks or commentators like myself are also financial advisors, because money's a thing that gets people's attention. So if I can talk about all these macroeconomic, geopolitical risk factors and whatnot, and then say, well, I'm not advising you, you know, disclaimer, 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 but you might want to think about investing in this or that or the other thing. You know, the BULIMT coin or whatever. Art has good return on investment. That's why you have to buy my art. And then they can comment on why the Twin Towers came down and what happened during C-19, the true story behind this, the war in Ukraine and whatnot. They're all experts somehow. I don't know how, but they think they are. And you're going, man, that's a foggy war. You read an article and they tell you exactly how many people, casualties, Russian casualties there are. And I'm wondering where they got the data. And if they don't trust, if all Russian information is false, you know, it's a logical fallacy, then if they're getting casualty information from Russian sources, it's got to be false, kind of thing. Or, no, it isn't false because it supports my narrative. Don't you understand that? You're not a player, man. So, these data points that support my narrative are true, and the ones that don't support my narrative are false. There! Enough said. You get it now? Pick a side. Idiot, pick a side. Who are you going to support? Which mafia boss? Which family? And then there's a price for anybody who is interested in truth, whether it's capital T or small t, because maybe they're not supporting a side. They haven't chosen sides. And so they come up with evidence, lines of evidence, data that support an alternative narrative. Oh my God. Sign of the cross, demonic, and they, whoa, it smells good. These little flowers. No? What was it? Oh, those yellow ones. See the yellow flowers? Oh man, those smell good. So, yeah, if it supports my narrative, my belief system, my, how I was programmed by the world, it's true. If not, it's false, period. So you get all kinds of Christian denominations and Muslim denominations and whatnot, religious movements, because people interpret the data differently, the story, the lines of evidence. And so you got different people, but it's an opportunity for a player, because you can say, I'm Adam Smith. I know better than this Baptist or Calvinist dude knows what's going on in God's mind. So I'm going to start my own religion, and I'm going to be the king, the pope, the boss. People are going to follow me. So anytime there's a split, a niche in the market, you can fill it if you want to be a player. But you have to commit yourself to the game. You have to know how it's played, or at least have some really good intuitions about how to play it. And then have the desire and the will, the will to carry it out and do great things. Because people know who Smith is and the Church of the Latter-day Saints. And they don't know you, my friend. You'll be forgotten. Your YouTube data will be there, but you'll be gone. Never having affected the world, only maybe making your kids laugh and feeding them and educating them and loving them. That's nothing. So that's how most of us are wired. We're not players. Players have to be committed, and there is a certain level of risk that you have to tolerate to play, and it may just be risk to your ego. People might say, I don't like you, and that might hurt a lot, but there can also be existential risk that you have to deal with. Martin Luther King knew he was going to get killed. He mentioned it. Well, it was a good thing to guess. Kind of makes sense. He was an enemy of the status quo. His teachings weren't in line with the great game. So they wiretapped him and followed him and messed with him. Civil rights? How dare you? It's like, I get my rights from God. So there is that. Am I right or am I wrong? So, this way goes to tons of orchards where you can gather. But then it goes back downhill. So I'll stay this way, in this enchanted forest. Knowing that J.R.R. Tolkien was talking about periods, the characters were based on periods of English history. pretty interesting, or British, whatever you want to go. Is fascinating. So, yeah, you're not a player unless you want to take those risks. I've been bankrupt 7 times, and now I'm a billionaire. You know, it's like that. And if you're going to motivational seminars, you're not going to be a player. Players can figure shit out for themselves and have the will. So I don't know if you think Tony Robbins has had impact on the world. I reckon not much, even though he has a big market. You know, so how much influence and impact does Tucker Carlson have on the world when he's an entertainer parroting information that's already out there? You just like him because you like him. He doesn't have an original thought in his pretty little head, ever. And the only thing he knows how to do is perform, and he's good at it. But he's not a player. How much influence does Tucker have? At the end of the day, not much. Another Tucker will fill his shoes easily. But Tucker for president, still not a player. He's a hired hand. If the players want him in office, he'll be in office. And you people will think that your votes counted. Even if all the machines are perfect, no corruption, your vote didn't count. Because where did you get the idea to vote for Tucker Carlson? If you had an idea, you'd be closer to a player than not. So, good old Tuck. Yeah, whoever you want to be your king or your president, take power, more executive power. You tell Congress what to do, you know, because you're so smart, Tucker. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's so smart. Well, idiots are people who don't participate in the public realm in a real way, an impactful way. So in a way, we're all idiots who vote for AOC or Marjorie Taylor Greene. We veered towards certain memes that excited us, got our attention, held our attention. And then we went along with the crowd. And now we have idiots in office. So, no, but they're not idiots, technically, from an etymological perspective, because they are, to some degree, playing in the game. But they're bit players. They're on the board, and they're pawns. So the kings all have a board, and the queens. The rest of them are just tools. And a good player invests in all sides, so he can maintain his influence. And I use the male pronoun because most of these players are men. I don't know why. Because feminism and certain ideas of equity haven't become more powerful or whatever. But yeah, all these guys in Brussels aren't players. And when they rotate out to the private sector, few of them become CEOs and entrepreneurs that become players. They usually have a well-paid job for a while as a reward for doing the player's bidding, and then they get to be spat out back into the public sector where they can, do their duty again. All right, man, we gave you 3 years, 4 years to make a bunch of money. Now you have to go back into service because we need a guy like you instead of that other guy in the office, in the seat, so that we can accomplish what we want to accomplish. And it looks like you're the guy. So you have to go back into public service. They have to go ask their donors if they're viable. It's not that they just woke up one morning like in a TV show and said, honey, I told you I'd never ever go into politics again, but America needs me. Look at what's happening. There's woke. I gotta go in and pop that bubble. They need me. Harry Truman. No. What do you think if I ran? All the consultants and the lobbyists come in and they anoint you. They do all the polling and they game it out and they see what players want to back you. Players have newspapers and TV stations and other resources. And yeah, good. William T., you're up. Senate seat. Yeah. In the great state of Portugal. Yeah, we need you, man. And, then you're in. You get to play, but only on the board. You're not the strategist. You're not the guy moving the pieces. That guy knows chess. And he knows how to play against high-level competitors who are out for his blood, his soul, to devastate and destroy his ego, to run him down and wreck him. How satisfying. It's like these off-mic pieces of Tucker Carlson. Oh, shocking. He said some goofy shit. Like everyone said. And then Caitlin Johnstone wrote a piece about, Chomsky, he's gonna go down at some time because, he was a big player in his little world. He didn't accomplish anything, but he was well respected in his little world. And he knew a lot of people. So he talked to Epstein and whatever. And so, that's it. He's bad. Can't listen to Chomsky anymore. Burn all his books. He's not pure. He's tainted. Of course, these people have talked to people online, Chomsky, that he doesn't even know. But, the guy wanted to hear his point of view, so I'll bet you if I asked nicely, he would talk to me, even though I only have, less than 200 subscribers. Can't you help me get 1,000, please? Anyway, so, as if any of us are perfect, right? As if we're not just people. So the players, shit stinks. They fart, they're cruel, they're crude, but they're good performers. They can make you believe that they're good guys, that they're interested in you. The minute they turn their back on you, you don't even exist. So I did a piece called Guaylo in the Mist about wealthy expat bankers on Queen's Peak. And you put the cultural anthropologists in the room in their mansions to take notes on iPads about the behavior, the way they really live. And No, they don't even notice the guy's there. It's like pure hidden camera reality TV, because you're just a grad student doing your anthropology project. I have nothing to hide. I'm married to a player, and we eat right, and we know the right kind of people. So if you were doing that work, you wouldn't have to apologize for being there or try to be less conspicuous. It's like a museum security monitor. You sit on your chair at the edge of the gallery, stay quiet, and watch the people walk through looking at the paintings. But in this case, they're taking notes on the behavior. Gorillas in the mist? No. Guilo in the mist. So it's not hard to find dirt on people who are players, because yeah, they're dirty. They manipulate the game, they create the game, they manage it, run it, you know. So maybe Texas Hold'em, you've got certain rules and you got people there to ensure that the rules are followed, and it's a fairly fair game. So if you have a skilled player with a big enough bank, they have good odds that they'll do all right, but not perfect odds. But in the case of the players, they can manipulate the rules. So, and they're going to do it. So what did the Koch brothers do for us? Well, they ran, energy, man. You wouldn't have anything. Imagine if my walk today talking to you was a walk to get water or food. Because the only energy I had was caloric energy in my body and the machine I call my body. But got my electric bike, got my car, and so on and so forth. We have electricity grids and whatnot. All those dirty, stinky libtards doing the dirty jobs. Yeah, so if you want to be a player and you have ethical qualms, you can figure out how to structure leadership organizations and come up with a project and say, I think we should do this in my town. And we should develop it, run it, roll it out, get people involved, get people to participate and buy into it. Now you're in a group of, small-scale players who could actually probably get something done. That's what entrepreneurs do. So yeah, you go fast, you accelerate, you grow as quickly as possible, you take lots of risks, and then you hand it over to the more conservative management team when you get to a certain scale, certain revenue. All good. So, and there are lots of models for that. There's lots of math behind it, lots of data, lots of really incredibly intelligent thinkers out there working on things like this. But we all work within the great game, so there's no way to escape it. Circumstances may change. We could have food shortages by 2035 that allow for hundreds of millions or maybe billions of people to starve to death, along with disease vectors and pandemics that are unpredictable because of the loss of permafrost and whatever. Anyway, it's all out there. It's all happening faster than anyone thought, because it's not profitable to think that it's going to happen quickly. The profitable course is to raise the alarm and say, we got plenty of time to sort it out. Now please give me money so I can do more study, more research. Because if the players think it is going to be over, then they don't care anymore. They're just gonna play among themselves to the guy who dies with the most resources and control wins. So yeah, Bill Gates is gonna buy up all the real estate or whatever they want to buy. They're gonna try to develop monopolies here, there, and elsewhere. Shareholders who are also bit players, but they have skin in the game, are gonna weigh in, and they're gonna build their arcs. And they won't be high tech, you know. You got your seed bank in Norway, you got northern Siberia and Canada and so on, Antarctica. At the end of the day, let's say it's 2100 or 20, yeah, something like that. You have new communities in other places with far fewer people, run by elites. And then maybe the whole game changes, the whole structure and system. We won't be there. But in the meantime, we understand our role in society, right? Borrow money and buy things. And keep our attention on our screens so that we can be properly programmed, so the players can take the advantage that they need to win the game. And if you're doing that, you're a pom-pom boy. You're a nice little cheerleader for the mainstream game. You don't know how it works really, but you think you do. And the players, thank you for your service. Thank you for listening. Booyamti, out.